My mom said, "You'll watch them tonight." So I taped a note on the door. So here's something I never thought I'd post. My name's Claire Thompson. I'm 35. And if there was ever an Olympic sport for being the family doormat, I'd have a few gold medals hanging on my wall by now. Every New Year's Eve used to look the same in our small Oregon town. The same fireworks outside the grocery parking lot. The same cheap champagne my mom swore was just as good as the real thing. And me, in someone else's house, watching someone else's kids, because Claire doesn't have plans anyway. I did, actually. I had plans this year, nothing crazy. Just a movie night with my boyfriend Daniel and my 2 kids, popcorn, a blanket fort, maybe even staying awake past midnight for once. I'd told my family that a week in advance. I even reminded them twice. You know, like a normal adult who sets boundaries. But around 4 p.m., as I was cutting apples for the kids, my phone buzzed. It was my mom. "You'll take Lisa's kids tonight. We have plans." No question mark, no please, just an order, like she was the CEO of my life and I was still on payroll. For a second, I thought it was a joke, but then I saw the typing bubbles pop up again. "She'll drop them off at 7. Don't make this difficult." I just stood there, knife in hand, apple turning brown on the counter, feeling the slow burn rise in my chest. The kind of anger that doesn't scream. It just hums quietly, like electricity. Because here's the thing, this wasn't new. I'd been the reliable one since I was 16. My mom had this unspoken rule. If something goes wrong, Claire will fix it. And for years, I did. I fixed their messes, their fights, their hangovers. I watched my sister's kids every other weekend while she went to find herself, which usually meant finding a new guy. I told myself I didn't mind because, family helps family. But somewhere along the way, that phrase started to taste bitter. When Daniel came home that evening, I must have still looked like a shaken soda can. He leaned on the doorway, reading the text over my shoulder. He didn't say much, just, "You okay?" I nodded, but it felt like lying, because deep down I knew. If I said yes again tonight, I'd never stop saying yes. There's this kind of silence that fills a house right before a decision gets made. The TV was off, the kids were upstairs, whispering about fireworks. Outside, the wind rattled the porch light like it wanted to warn me. Either you open that door again, or you finally lock it. I went to the junk drawer, found a thick piece of white card, and a roll of tape. My handwriting shook at first, then steadied. "We're not available tonight. Do not leave the kids. Claire." I taped it right on the front door, the sound of the tape ripping. It was louder than I expected. Final. Like something in me had just clicked shut. Daniel watched me quietly, the corner of his mouth twitching like he was half proud, half worried. "You sure?" "Yeah," I said. "I'm done being their babysitter." "Good," he said softly. "About time." At 6:58, headlights swept across the living room. My daughter peeked through the curtain. "Mom, Aunt Lisa's here." My stomach tightened. I didn't move. I wanted to see what would happen if I didn't run to the door for once. Through the window, I watched Lisa's car pull up. The back doors flew open. Backpacks dropped onto the porch like cargo. The kids stepped out, shivering in thin hoodies. Lisa didn't even get out. I could see her laughing at something on her phone. My mom was in the passenger seat, lipstick perfect, waving lazily. Then Lisa pointed at the door, said something I couldn't hear, and started backing out of the driveway. That was it. The kids stood there, confused, breathing clouds into the cold. They knocked, softly at first, then harder. "Aunt Claire? Grandma said you'd open the door." My heart cracked a little, not because of them, but because they really believed that was true, that I would always open the door, no matter what. Daniel stood behind me, his hand resting on my shoulder. "What are you gonna do?" I swallowed hard. "I'm going to let them in, but not them." When I opened the door, the air hit me like ice. The kids' eyes were wide, uncertain. I knelt down, helped them with their bags, and said the calmest words I'd ever spoken. "You're safe here, come inside." They stepped in without a word. I shut the door, turned the lock, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel trapped. I felt right. In that moment, I didn't realize it yet, but that tiny note on the door would end up rewriting my whole life. You ever have one of those nights where the silence in your house feels heavier than usual? That was me standing in my hallway, staring at my front door like it might start talking back. The note I'd taped there looked small, almost stupid, like a paper shield against decades of guilt. But it was the first thing I'd ever written for myself. "We're not available tonight. Do not leave the kids. Claire." 8 words that felt like dynamite. I could hear the clock ticking in the kitchen, the hum of the fridge, the faint sound of cartoons upstairs. My kids had no idea a storm was rolling toward us. Daniel handed me a mug of cocoa, the good kind with actual whipped cream, and said, "You look like you just broke up with someone." I laughed, but it came out shaky. "Yeah," I said. "Maybe I did, just not the kind of breakup you post about." At exactly 7 o'clock, headlights swept across the living room again. This time, I didn't flinch. I'd been through this routine too many times to count. The drive-by drop-off, the fake apologies, the promises to make it up to me that never meant anything. But this time, I'd promised myself I wouldn't play along. The car door slammed, then another. My sister's voice pierced through the cold like nails on a chalkboard. "Claire, open up. Mom says you're watching them tonight." Her tone wasn't a question. It was entitlement wrapped in a demand. Behind her, I heard my mom's voice. Smooth, sharp, that fake sweet tone she used whenever she wanted something. "Claire, don't make a scene. Just take them. It's one night." You know what's wild? Even after all these years, part of me still wanted to open that door. It's like your brain gets wired to obey the people who raised you, even when they've turned that love into a weapon. I had to remind myself, over and over, that I wasn't the villain for saying no, that boundaries aren't betrayal. They knocked harder. My son peeked down the stairs, rubbing his eyes. "Mom, why are Grandma and Aunt Lisa yelling?" I forced a smile. "It's okay, honey. Go watch your movie." He hesitated, then nodded and went back upstairs. I could feel Daniel's eyes on me. He didn't say a word, but I felt his quiet support, like a wall at my back. Then came the sound of small fists tapping on the glass. The kids, my niece and nephew. My chest tightened. "Aunt Claire?" the little one said, voice trembling. "Grandma said you'd open." And that right there almost broke me. Because they weren't at fault. They were just pawns in whatever self-centered game my sister was playing. I walked closer to the door, but stopped short of touching it. Through the glass, I saw their little faces. Noses pink from the cold, party hats from God knows where, and confusion written all over them. Behind them, my mom sat in the passenger seat, scrolling through her phone like this was all perfectly normal. Daniel whispered, "They're not gonna leave, are they?" I shook my head. "No, but I'm not opening until they realize I mean it." For the next few minutes, the knocking turned into pounding, then shouting. My mom's voice cracked through the night. "Claire Marie, you're acting ridiculous. Do you have any idea how selfish this looks?" I almost laughed, the irony of being called selfish by the woman who had just abandoned 2 children on my porch. Finally, I heard my sister hiss something under her breath. Car doors slammed again, tires squealed, the driveway lights faded, and just like that, they were gone. Except they weren't, because they'd left the kids behind. The silence that followed was unreal. I swear I could hear my own pulse. I stood there staring at those 2 tiny shapes on the other side of the glass, not moving, not crying, just waiting. The kind of waiting that breaks something in you. I opened the door, the cold hit like a slap. "Come in, babies," I said softly. They looked up at me, uncertain, until I knelt down and smiled. "It's okay. You're safe now." Once inside, they clung to each other like they didn't trust warmth anymore. I wrapped them in blankets, poured cocoa, and turned on the same movie my kids were watching. For a second, the room felt almost normal, like this was how it was supposed to be all along. While the kids giggled at the screen, Daniel leaned in and whispered, "You did the right thing." "I don't feel right," I admitted. "I feel like I just declared war." He smiled a little, then let them be the first casualties. That made me laugh, even if it was through tears, because he wasn't wrong. Around 9 p.m., my phone lit up with a dozen missed calls. Mom, Lisa, unknown numbers. I put it face down on the table and didn't move. Daniel muted the TV just enough for me to hear the soft hum of the heater and the kids' quiet breathing. It was peaceful in a way I hadn't felt in years. But peace doesn't last long in families like mine. 10 minutes later, there was another knock. Loud this time, impatient. I froze. Daniel stood up, but I shook my head. I didn't need to look. I knew that knock, that authority, my mom's. When I didn't answer, her voice came muffled through the door. "Claire, if you don't open this right now, you'll regret it. You're embarrassing yourself." I closed my eyes. I wanted to scream. I wanted to yell every word I'd swallowed since I was 15. But instead, I said quietly, mostly to myself, "No, Mom, I'm finally not." And that's when I realized something that honestly scared me a little. I didn't feel afraid anymore. I didn't even feel guilty. I felt still, like someone had turned off the noise in my head for the first time. After that, she left again. The driveway lights disappeared and the night went silent. Daniel came back with another mug of cocoa, this time for me. He sat beside me on the couch, our kids and their cousins all tangled up under the same blanket, half asleep. "You okay?" he asked. "I think so," I said. "I think I finally did something right." He smiled. "Then maybe we start the new year like that, doing what's right, not what's easy." Outside, snow started falling, soft and quiet. Inside, the house smelled like cocoa and popcorn and something else. Freedom, maybe. I glanced toward the door. The note was still there, fluttering a little in the heater breeze. And for the first time in my life, I didn't worry about who might be reading it, because it wasn't for them. It was for me. It was almost midnight when my phone buzzed. I thought it was my mom again, ready for round 2 of guilt tripping. But the number wasn't familiar. I almost ignored it, but something in me, that little gut instinct that always kicks in when life's about to flip, told me to pick up. "Claire?" The voice on the other end was calm, deep, and unfamiliar. "I'm sorry to call this late. My name's Evan Miller." I froze. I knew that name, my sister's ex. The one she always called a loser, a deadbeat, the guy who ran off. "I heard about what happened tonight," he said. "You have the kids, right?" My stomach dropped. "How do you—" "I've been trying to reach them for months," he said. "Your mother blocked me. Your sister changed her number, but a friend from town sent me a picture, the kids on your porch, said you were the only one who opened the door." I sat down slowly, heart pounding. The cocoa in my mug had gone cold, but I didn't move. "What are you trying to say?" He took a breath. "I'm driving there right now. I'll be there by morning." I didn't know whether to be scared or relieved. Daniel looked up from the couch. "Everything okay?" I whispered. "It's their dad." He blinked. "Their real dad?" "Apparently." That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the recliner by the window, watching the snow fall under the porch light, listening to the soft breathing of 4 kids sleeping in the next room. Every time the wind rattled the glass, I thought of my mom's voice, the same tone she used to convince us that her way was the only way. And now, for the first time, I wondered if maybe everything I thought I knew about my family was just her version of the truth. At 6:30 a.m., I saw headlights pull into the driveway. The car door opened, and a man stepped out, tall, worn down, but not broken, carrying 2 duffel bags and a look that said he hadn't slept in years. When I opened the door, he didn't smile. He just looked at me, then past me, into the living room, where his kids were sitting at the table, eating cereal. The way his face changed, God, I'll never forget it. He dropped the bags and covered his mouth like he was trying not to break down. "Hey, buddy," he whispered, kneeling as his son looked up. "You've gotten so big." His daughter ran into his arms before anyone could stop her. The sound that came out of him wasn't a cry. It was something deeper, relief, grief, everything all at once. I turned away to give them a moment, but he caught my arm gently. "Thank you," he said. His eyes were wet, voice trembling. "If you hadn't opened that door—" I shook my head. "They're just kids. They didn't deserve that." Inside were papers, folders, envelopes, a stack of letters bound with a rubber band. He spread them out on the table like evidence in a courtroom. He nodded, then unzipped his bag. "I want to show you something. These," he said, pointing, "are the child support receipts. Every month for 6 years. I paid through your mother's account because Lisa said it was easier for her. Turns out she was cashing them and telling everyone I'd abandoned them." He slid another folder toward me. "These are the letters. Birthdays, Christmas, school photos I sent gifts for, all returned. Address unknown." My throat went dry. "She said you never sent anything." He gave a humorless laugh. "Of course she did. Makes her look like the victim." Then he handed me one last document, a court notice. "I filed for partial custody last fall. Your mom showed up to the hearing, told the judge I was an addict, unstable, unemployed. None of it true. But I didn't have a lawyer, and she had that charm that makes people believe her." I felt sick, not just angry, betrayed. My entire family had spun this web of lies, and I'd been sitting in it like a damn fly. When he finished, he sat back, rubbing his face. "I didn't come here to fight. I just needed to see my kids. But, Claire, what they did last night..." He looked me dead in the eye. "That's neglect. It's abuse." I nodded slowly. "I know." Daniel had been quiet the whole time, but now he stepped forward. "You want coffee?" he asked, calm as ever. Evan nodded. For a few minutes, we sat there like 3 war survivors, the truth hanging between us, heavy and real. When the kids finished breakfast, they ran to him, showing drawings, toys, anything to make him stay. He promised he wasn't leaving this time. Then my phone buzzed again. Mom, I didn't answer. A minute later, a text. You've gone too far this time, Claire. We'll talk later. Daniel glanced at it, then at me. You think she knows he's here? Probably, I said. And she's going to hate that she can't control it. Evan smiled faintly. That makes two of us. Around 10, there was another knock at the door. Sharp, insistent. I peeked through the blinds. My mom's car, of course. Lisa was with her, mascara smudged, wearing last night's party dress. I opened the door just enough to step outside. What do you want? My mom's voice dripped with that fake calm. We're here for the kids. You've caused enough trouble. Behind her, Lisa crossed her arms. You had no right to call him. I didn't, I said. He called me. Her face went pale. He's here? Yup. They both froze. Then, like clockwork, the mask slipped. My mom's voice hardened. You don't know what you've done, Claire. You're ruining this family. I took a step closer, dropped my tone. No, Mom. You ruined it when you started lying to everyone in it. She glared. You think anyone will believe you over your own sister? Just then, the door opened behind me. Evan stepped out, calm but cold. Actually, he said, they'll believe the guy holding 6 years of bank statements and court records. Lisa's mouth fell open. My mom went silent for the first time I could remember. Evan held up the folder, almost gently. You took my money, you took my kids, but you don't get to take their future. Nobody spoke. Even the wind felt like it had stopped to listen. Then quietly I said, you should leave now. My mom's eyes darted between me and Evan. She wanted to yell, but she didn't. For once, she didn't have a script ready. She turned on her heel, grabbed Lisa's arm, and stormed back to the car. As the engine roared and they sped off, Evan let out a long, shaky breath. You know, he said, I thought I'd feel angry, but right now, I just feel tired. Yeah, I said, that's what the truth does. It's heavy, but at least it's real. Inside, the kids were laughing at something on TV, unaware that their whole world had just changed. Evan looked at them through the doorway. I'm filing again, he said quietly. This time with evidence. I nodded. And this time, I'll be on your side. He smiled, small, grateful, like someone finally exhaled after years underwater. And that's when I realized. Sometimes justice doesn't come loud or fast. Sometimes it shows up in a quiet kitchen at dawn, holding a folder full of truths no one wanted to see. But once it's opened, there's no closing it again. The next morning felt like waking up inside someone else's life. The air was still heavy from the night before, and yet the house felt lighter. Evan was sitting at the kitchen table with a notebook and a stack of documents, the kind of focus people only get when they've run out of fear. The kids were eating pancakes Daniel made, giggling over who got the biggest one. For the first time, I saw something on Evan's face that looked almost like peace. But peace doesn't last long in a family like mine. At 8 a.m., there was a knock. Not the angry, demanding kind from my mother, but a polite, firm one. When I opened the door, two people stood there, a woman in a navy coat with a clipboard, and a man in plain clothes with a badge clipped to his belt. Child Protective Services, ma'am, she said. We received a report about minors left unattended in freezing conditions. I swear I almost laughed. Yeah, I said, stepping aside. They're right here, safe, warm, and having breakfast. You're welcome to see for yourself. They came in, looked around, saw 4 kids in fuzzy pajamas eating pancakes and watching cartoons. The agent smiled softly. They seem okay, I nodded. They are now. Evan handed her the paperwork, his hands steady. I'd like to file an emergency custody petition, he said. I have documentation of neglect and fraud. The woman flipped through the pages, eyebrows raising higher with every one. She didn't say much, just gave him a look that said, you might actually get this. She asked a few questions, noted everything down, then left with a promise to follow up with the court. For a brief second, the world went quiet again. I thought maybe, just maybe, things were about to settle. But that hope lasted about 20 minutes. Because when it comes to my mom, karma never needs long to catch up. It just needs an audience. I was in the living room when I heard it. The unmistakable sound of her voice outside, sharp as a blade. You called the cops on your own family? She screamed. I peeked through the curtain. There she was, standing in my driveway, like she owned the whole street. Hair perfect, face twisted with rage. Lisa was next to her, sunglasses on, shaking like she hadn't slept, which she probably hadn't. Evan sighed. Do you want me to? No, I said, setting down my coffee. This one's mine. When I stepped outside, she was already in full performance mode. Claire Marie, do you have any idea what you've done? You embarrassed this family. You dragged CPS into our business. I folded my arms. You mean after you abandoned 2 children in 20-degree weather? Her mouth tightened. That's not what happened, and you know it. Lisa jumped in, voice shaky but defiant. You think you're a hero? You're not. You're just jealous, like always. I actually laughed. Jealous of what? Watching you burn down your own life in slow motion? She flinched like I'd slapped her, but I didn't stop. You've been lying to everyone for years. About Evan, about the money, about everything. And now it's catching up to you. Right on cue, a black sedan pulled up. 2 CPS agents stepped out, followed by a police officer holding an envelope. My mother's bravado cracked instantly. What is this? She demanded. The officer handed Lisa the envelope. Ma'am, this is a temporary custody order filed by Mr. Miller, effective immediately. Lisa's face went white. You can't do this, she stammered. You can't just take them. Evan stepped out of the doorway then, calm, collected. Actually, he said, the court can. The kids, sensing the tension, peeked from behind me. Lisa reached toward them, but they didn't move. They stayed close to me, to the woman who'd actually opened the door last night. That image, her kids choosing me over her, must have hit hard because her voice cracked. You're turning them against me. No, I said quietly. You did that when you left them out in the cold. Even the officer looked uncomfortable. My mom, realizing her control was slipping, tried one last trick. Tears. Claire, please, she said, voice trembling now. We're family. Don't let this man take them away. And maybe once upon a time that line would have worked, but not anymore. Family, I said, doesn't leave children on porches and call it parenting. For a long second, no one spoke. Then Lisa broke, sobbing, screaming, calling me every name she could think of. The officers guided her to the car gently, telling her she'd have her chance in court. Evan stood still, his hands shaking slightly as he thanked them. When the cars pulled away, the silence that followed wasn't heavy this time. It was clean, honest. Back inside, Daniel handed me my coffee again. Well, he said, that escalated. I smiled weakly. Yeah, but at least it's finally over. Evan sat down across from me, exhausted but relieved. You didn't have to defend me out there. Yes, I did, I said, because I spent half my life watching them lie about people who couldn't fight back. Not this time. He nodded slowly. You know, I used to think justice meant revenge, but I think maybe it's just truth. Being seen for who you really are. That hit me harder than I expected. Because for years, I'd been invisible, the good daughter, the quiet one, the peacemaker. But that morning, standing there in my messy living room, I felt seen too. Not by my mother, not by my sister, but by the truth itself. Later that afternoon, when the CPS agent called to confirm that the kids were being placed with Evan temporarily, I sat on the porch and just breathed. The winter air was crisp, the kind that stings your lungs but also reminds you you're alive. Daniel came out, sat beside me, and said, You did good, Claire. I didn't do it for good, I said quietly. I did it because I was done being their cleanup crew. He laughed. That's still good. For a while, we just watched the snow start again, coating the world in white. Like the universe was trying to give us all a fresh page. Inside, the kids were coloring. One of them drew a picture of a house, a family, and a big sun overhead. He showed it to me, proud. This is your house, Aunt Claire, he said. It's warm here. And for the first time, I realized he was right. Because sometimes justice doesn't come from courts or cops or big speeches. Sometimes it comes from a locked door, a simple note, and the courage to finally say, no more. That night, as I put the kids to bed one last time before they left with their dad, I whispered, You're safe now. And maybe finally I was too. It's been 6 months since that night. The night everything cracked wide open. I still have the same front door, the same porch light, the same dent in the mailbox from where my son tried to learn baseball with a metal bat. But something about this house feels different now. Lighter, quieter, free. The kids are with Evan full-time now. They visit on weekends sometimes, and when they do, the house bursts with laughter and spilled juice and crayon marks. I'll probably never wash off. Lisa moved out of state after the custody hearing, and Mom, well, she calls once in a while, usually to check in, but I think we both know it's her way of testing the water. Seeing if I'll let her back in. I haven't, not yet, maybe not ever. Last week, I found the old note, that note, still tucked in the drawer by the door. We're not available tonight. I remember writing it with shaking hands, scared out of my mind. Funny how something so small could change the entire course of your life. I kept it, not as a trophy, but as a reminder of the night I stopped being everyone's backup plan. Sometimes I think about calling Mom back. Then I remember her standing in my driveway that morning, screaming about embarrassment while her grandkids shivered in the car. And I realize, I don't miss her. I miss the idea of a mother I never really had. Daniel says I should forgive her, not for her sake, but for mine. And maybe he's right, but forgiveness doesn't mean reopening the door. Sometimes it just means leaving it closed and walking away. A few weeks ago, Evan invited me and Daniel to the kids' school play. He was nervous, first time being that dad again, showing up in a place where everyone had already heard rumors. But he went anyway, clean suit, flowers in hand, proud as hell. When the curtain opened and his daughter spotted him in the crowd, her whole face lit up. That was the moment it hit me. Sometimes justice looks nothing like revenge. Sometimes it's just a dad finally showing up to the right stage. After the show, he hugged me and said, "You changed everything, you know that?" I laughed. I didn't do much. He smiled. "You opened a door." That stuck with me, because he was right. That's all I did. But sometimes opening the right door means closing 100 wrong ones. There was one more surprise after the hearing. A letter from my mom. No apology, of course. Just her version of, "I hope you're happy now." For a second, I almost tore it up. But then I realized, I am happy now. Just not in the way she meant. I used to think family was about loyalty, about sticking together no matter what. But I've learned that real family isn't about who shares your blood. It's about who shows up when you're drowning and doesn't ask for credit. It's Daniel holding a mug of cocoa and saying, "Let them be the first casualties." It's Evan standing in my doorway, shaking but determined. It's 4 kids laughing around my kitchen table like the world hadn't just been turned upside down. It's me finally saying no, and realizing that no can be the most loving word in the world. A few nights ago, I stood on the porch again, watching the snow fall. Same cold, same quiet. But this time, no cars in the driveway, just peace. I thought about that night, the yelling, the fear, the chaos, and how none of it owns me anymore. I used to replay it in my head like a bad movie, wondering if I'd done the right thing. But now, I don't question it. Because every time I look at those kids, healthy, smiling, safe, I know I did. The door's still the same one, same paint, same squeaky hinge. But it's not just a door anymore. It's a boundary, a lesson, a promise to myself. Sometimes when people ask me what happened, I just smile and say, I stopped answering the wrong knock. And maybe that's the truth of it. The story, the lesson, the closure. We all have that one door in our lives that needs to stay closed. Not because of anger, but because peace lives on the other side. So yeah, maybe one day I'll forgive my mom. Maybe one day Lisa will call, sober, clear-eyed, ready to be a sister again. And if that day ever comes, maybe I'll listen. But I don't owe them the open door anymore. Because this time, the note stays up. Not taped, not written, but etched somewhere deeper. We're not available tonight. Not for guilt, not for manipulation, not for the kind of love that demands you shrink to fit someone else's comfort. I'm available for peace, for truth, for the kind of family you choose. The ones who show up, even when it's hard. And if you're listening to this and you've ever felt like the good one, the one everyone dumps their chaos on because you'll always say yes, here's the thing. You're allowed to close that door. You're allowed to rest. Sometimes saying no isn't the end of your story. It's where it finally begins. You know, looking back, I used to think strength meant holding everything together. Saying yes when I wanted to say no, keeping peace no matter how much it cost me. But the truth is, silence isn't peace. It's surrender. Real peace begins the moment you stop apologizing for protecting your own heart. That night, when I left the note on the door, I wasn't trying to start a war. I was trying to end one, the one I'd been fighting with myself for years. In this life, some people will only love you as long as you're useful. Some will twist guilt into chains and call it family. But as folks say, you reap what you sow, and sooner or later, truth always blooms through the cracks. I learned that boundaries aren't walls. They're doors that only open for the people who deserve to come in. And maybe that's what justice really is. Not revenge, not loud victories, but quiet freedom. My mom eventually reached out again. She didn't say sorry, not directly, but I could hear it in the pause between her words. I forgave her, but this time on my terms. If you've ever had to close a door to save yourself, Or if you're standing in front of one right now, afraid to do it, this is your sign. Do it. The world won't end. In fact, it might finally begin. Tell me what you think. Have you ever had to walk away from someone you love to find peace? Share your story in the comments. Hit like if this one resonated with you. And subscribe for more stories that remind us what it means to be human. Take care of yourself tonight. You deserve calm after the storm.